Hello everyone and welcome to the Monster Report, a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. Your host Nick Adam Poling here today. We've got some Motu figures to get unpackaged here on another episode of Box Day. Alright, now let's get into this. So we've got the Target exclusive of the Masterverse figures of He-Man and Skeletor. And if you've seen these things on the shelf, sometimes they're kind of flying off the shelves. We actually had to travel far and wide. My wife had to travel far and wide to get these for me, so I really appreciate her picking these up for me for this review. And it's going to be excited to get these on the shelf because I'm a big fan of the 1987 movie. We have the He-Man 1987 t-shirt. Thank you to Everett Grondin for sending this over to me and Eli. We got matching He-Man shirts from the movie, and he's a big fan of this too, so follow him on his channel, Godzilla Fan Freaks. Before we get too further into this, of course, like, subscribe, all of those great things. Hit that notification bell. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Just look for The Monster Report, at The Monster Report, all of those great things. That's out of the way. You're going to do that. Of course, make sure, again, hit that like button. We've got all kinds of great things coming out. And of course, if you're looking at this and it looks like it's an unfinished room, that's because it is. We are almost done with this office. It is in the home stretch. There's paint and nails and electric wires and all kinds of things and water pipes kind of hanging and dangling. So I'm in this unfinished area, which will one day be my studio office in the future home of the Monster Report. So yeah, it's like things are everywhere. Plaster, itching stuff, you know, drywall. I mean, it's insulation. It's going to be great when it all gets done. It's been a long time coming, and it's thanks to you and all your support that this is all possible to have this future space for the Monster Report. We're about 95,000 subscribers at the time of this recording. We're hitting that 100K mark here soon, so again, thanks to you for supporting this channel. All that's out of the way, let's get into this figure review. One of the cool things about this, when you flip them around, you get kind of a nice little diorama there of this is our final battle when you get Skeletor and He-Man in a different form for Skeletor in the movie. Of course, he was God Skeletor at that point, but that Gray Skull throne kind of setup that they had there, that beautiful set that Canon Films had built for the 87 movie. And so we've got that as a diorama. Definitely going to keep these boxes in good shape to be able to set up something here in the office when all those shelves are established. So got the He-Man, the William Stout design, and same William Stout design for Skeletor. Of course, we had Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella playing these characters, but the likeliness can't be exactly those two, but the William Stout design, of course, they can make figures of. And that's why, if you've seen other episodes, you'll know that I've got the Motu Classics figures of both of these, the Dark Despot Skeletor and the Rebel Leader He-Man. Very close kind of to the looks of what you would see in the film, but this one is going to have some interesting surprises. I'm going to leave Skeletor for later just because I know he's going to be a favorite, so definitely stick till the end of this episode so we can see that. And again, be careful with these boxes so we can keep them in good shape, unlike my kids, which just throw them onto the other end of the room. So there we go with Rebel Leader He-Man. We've got beautiful sword of power here. Got interchangeable hands. And like the other figure, we have the blaster. And this one actually has two daggers and an interchangeable head, unlike the other figure. So that's going to be fun to see.
He-Man will be right back after these messages.
All right, we finally got him out of that packaging. That is some fun packaging to get him out of, but already this is definitely well worth it. Compared to, like, the classics, obviously, that we're going to do a lot of comparisons with that, but for retail price, and the price at the time of this recording was $33 for each, so not too bad. The Masterverse molds, are definitely articulated different than the Super 7s, but there are some similarities. You always have that articulation of the waist joint there, but there's a lot more kind of articulation going on in the legs, and I would say that there's some intricacies that is a little different. Well, not a lot different actually. The Motu Classics, there was a lot more detail that was happening in the chest plate, the shoulder pads, but for retail, I'm not complaining. These are good shoulder pads. This is a bit on the blurry side. I'm kind of looking at that to see it's not quite as crisp as I remember it from the Classics figure there, and he's very rigid, and it's almost like I'm forcing these arms down. He's set up in that packaging with his arms up, so it's almost like his arms are into place, and he doesn't want to move them. That the shoulder is on the ball joint there, and it just doesn't want to move around as well. The shoulder pads are pretty loosey-goosey on there too. I'd say they're a lot more bulky than the other figure, and how you would see it in the movie. As far as the face, that's not a bad representation of what Dolph Lundgren looked like. It's got the mullet He-Man kind of going on there, but not too bad. We've got the belt with all the places to put the dagger and accessories. Now, interestingly, this is something the Classics did not have, is in his boot. You do have a place for the small dagger, which you actually see that in the movie come into play, where he reaches down, grabs that dagger, and tosses it at one of the villains. So, trying to see how they want you to. It looks like this style dagger, which more looks like almost like a sai, like Raphael and the Turtles. That's to fit in the boot, and it fits perfectly in there. And you see the shape actually of the blade matches the sheath for that, and just process of elimination leaves this one for the small dagger, though it just doesn't seem like it fits well in there. You do kind of have to work it in there, but it does go. It does go. So. And even the belt buckle there, it's just kind of a phoned in look to it. In fact, the black that they put on there, that's maybe one of my criticisms, that it just doesn't have that crispness. I always remember that there was like a jewel, kind of like you got here on his arm band, that there was more like a jewel in that spot there. Let's get his blaster, very much like the Classics. There we go. And of course, he's got interchangeable hands, so you can swap them out. In this case, I'm just going to keep him a right-handed swordsman. And I just love this sword. It's one that I am putting together a replica of my own, and it's been kind of a labor of love, so it's always nice to have a model kind of to go off of. There's a lot of great pictures out there of this sword. They referred to it as like the Buick of swords. I guess this thing was just crazy heavy when they put it all together, but it is beautiful. And it didn't need to be the exact likeliness of the toy in the Filmation series. They came up with a practical design for live action. Getting it in his hands, a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, you're gonna have to wear those parts into place. So there we have it. We've got a cloth cape, and different than the other, the Classics, that design on the back of the cape actually is there, which right from the movie. I always thought it was strange when he was wading through water, getting Gwildor out of the water and all that, and he had a cape. He's fighting these battles and things, and capes, no capes. It's like they look cool, but practically they just get in the way. So yeah, I am still, not real thrilled with the articulation in the arms. It is very rigid, and I just feel like I'm going to break that arm moving it down. Just, there's a lot of the joints here in the elbow that are not stiff at all, but getting that ball joint to do what you want it to do is quite challenging, because you're trying to rotate it into a place, but it's almost like I want to bring that arm down a bit more so he can hold the sword straight up, but it's almost like he's got to be in the pose where he's holding it out sideways like that. I'm not really a fan of that. I kind of want to have more flex room with it and play in the arms. It's almost like he's got his arms up and they can't be put back down. So I guess he's always looking imposing. But, not bad for retail. He does have a sheath for the sword back there, and a lot of this is removable. It looks to be like a lot of your vintage He-Man. So I would assume, actually, that with this gap up here, there is actually part of the sheath goes all the way up into the middle of the back and goes into the sheath, so that you can put him set up with the sword actually going through the gap in the cape behind his head. Speaking of his head, let's go ahead and interchange this, because I think this is an interesting move to be able to give him an interchangeable head that now will get him to look like the Filmation vintage toy He-Man that we're used to. That kind of a face with the 1987 armor and sword. So kind of like that. I kind of like where they're going with this, and this is going to look good with the rest of the figures up there, because you get that look and you still have the classics to go with it. So it's not like you're buying the same toy over again, same figure twice. So let's see how well he stands up and get him into a place. Not too bad, actually. That cloth cape there does kind of get bunched up underneath, and it's probably a bit of a challenge, I'd say, to get it to where it's looking like it's to hang naturally. But again, that is what a cape is. And interestingly, in the movie, you see in portions when he's actually fighting, he doesn't have the cape on, so it's like discard that cape as quickly as you can so we can actually get Dolph in there fighting with Blade and all the troopers that they had in the movie. So, but there we have it. Pretty good looking figure. I have no regrets for especially the small amount of dollars that this cost, and I don't know if it's going to be one of those rare figures. Don't know if the toy line's actually going away. At the time of this recording, it's still kind of up in the air that Masterverse and Origins might be going away, so that remains to be seen. But I'm glad I nabbed this before that, but then maybe I might regret it later because it might end up on the clearance shelves. Who knows? But it's the movie and it's part of my childhood. I gotta have a piece of that into the collection. So, the moment some of you have been waiting for is to get Skeletor out of here. And of course, Frank Langella with his iconic, villainous, Shakespearean Shakespeare of Skeletor. Shakespeare? I don't know. There's probably something someone has put together for that. So, there we have it. We'll get him out of this packaging and check him out. Okay, and we've got Lord Skeletor out of the packaging. There is a lot of purple going on with this figure. Purple and black, you kind of think of as the Skeletor in the movie. And purple very much like the Filmation series anyway, so they kind of, I think, overdid it maybe with the purple in this. Kind of reminded of the Batman Nintendo game where he was depicted in purple. You can put him in very dark, black outfit like that, but you're talking about pixels in the 8-bit era of Nintendo, so they colored him that dark purple, of course, so you could see him with all the backdrops and all that. So I think it's a little unnecessary in a figure, however much of that shows up. Interestingly, the cape I don't know if this is the way it's actually supposed to be or if I need to readjust it a bit. I think I do, because in the packaging, it sure felt like it was pulled off to one side, and I'm like, is that them trying to be clever? No, I think that's just the way, in shipping and all that. So you have to kind of lift up on this vinyl piece, this plastic piece here, just a bit to get that cape all worked out. And we've also got a cloth cape, not like Scare Glow and some of the others where they have the the more vinyl kind of cape going on there. So always like this about Frank Langella's Skeletor and that design, having kind of these strands, these robe strands going down, and all of the different kind of runes, these symbols that are going on. Again, somewhat inexpensive, cheapo way to do things with the belt buckles and some of the intricacies here. Again, this is not the $100 or $200 whatever the Classics is going for now version of it, so you're not going to get as many details in it. I don't really remember his shoulder pads looking quite this prominent with this zigzag purple and black going on, but overall not too bad. The face looks very good, actually. This is top notch right from the movie, leaps right out at you. And of course this is makeup and a mask that Langella wore so he could act through it, and his performance really came through. I always loved his gloves with the bone-looking kind of knuckles going out, and he's kind of decked out in some technology and sort of this idea of this destructive force all at the same time. He's highly decorated, but he's also very powerful. And so let's see what kind of accessories we've got. His sword. Not to be confused with a second half of the power sword. This is his version of the sword, and from the movie, actually. Little intricacies there, little details, actually, they captured. A little sharper in the Classics, but not bad, again, for this version of it. And they definitely liked that broadsword look, just like He-Man's, and they're pretty much the same scale there, side by side, just, a different hilt design there, having the skull, however much that shows up, on camera, kind of the skull with mechanical pieces coming off of it, so not bad. I like it, dig it. And we've got interchangeable hands. I'm going to leave the hands that he has. He's got more of an open hand and a closed fist, if you wanted to swap them out that way. But I'm going to keep them the way they are so we can get his Havoc staff and his sword. And again, he's right-handed, so I'm going to have his sword in the right hand. I wonder if he actually does have a sheath for the sword. I do not see. He's not going to store it. In fact, if you remember from the movie, he kind of had it down low on his belt. So there is no storage. He is going to be holding that sword, or it's going to be placed on the shelf in front of him. And we've got the beautiful Havoc staff. I think that there's a lot more bulk to this one than in the movie. It's definitely the likeliness from the movie. They did a good job in the movie of recreating the Havoc staff. It didn't become a real part of the movie for the most part, except for in the God Skeletor, where he's actually fighting with it, fighting He-Man, using it as a weapon, offensive and defensive weapon. But I still feel like that maybe even the horns were less prominent in the film, and I think that they just kind of went with a plain gray. There's not any kind of detail in the paint there. It's just very flat, plain gray. And a lot of the times you see like the technology kind of running up and down these staves and stuff. Nothing's happening there. It's just a staff, black staff with the silver top to it. And though I do enjoy when he is, making his entrance into Grayskull, walking towards the throne, and he's, banging it on the floor as he walks, and it just makes that entrance really work and pop. Just like in the He-Man, the rigidity that you have in the articulation, it is Yeah, very rigid. Even in the elbow joints here, that's pretty stiff actually to get that elbow joint to move, whereas the He-Man was actually, the elbow joint was pretty good. The ball joint on the shoulder, yeah, it just feels like you're going to break it. So, I guess his arms are to be kind of high up on there. Little quality controls issues underneath. If it shows up, it's kind of hard to see. I can definitely see it from my perspective, but you can kind of see little white dabs of glue underneath these shoulder pads, both shoulder pads there. They don't show up on camera too bad, so I could have just faked it, but it is there. It's definitely something you can see. Just underneath that shoulder pad, you can see the little dab of glue they use to adhere that to him. Head doesn't move around a whole lot, and there is no interchangeable head with this. This is the one you get, but other than maybe a different facial expression, this is pretty much what he's going to look like. And you even see the fangs, that they gave him when you got to see him bare his teeth. Very cool, villain. I mean, one of the most iconic villains out there is how he portrayed that. And I'm so glad that Frank Langella thinks fondly of, back to the memories of putting together the Skeletor, character that he did, and not just being the, from the Filmation. He really, brought out like the almost like Khan Noonien Singh from Star Trek. This guy, he wants his enemies dead. He wants to rule. We also got the Cosmic Key. And that's an interesting, different look to it. More of a brownish bottom here than the dark kind of silvery buttons. You have the tones, when the sharp, pointy things that are part of it as they roll around it, but it's just, all flat gray. And then an interesting, light purple top to it. They took some liberties from the movie to make this, though you do get the big red button there. That was to activate the key after you punched in your coordinates and all. Nothing much more than just that, and it's got its handle. So I assume if you swapped it out maybe with the open hand, that you could slip that key into that hand so he could actually walk around with it. Be nice if they actually gave him something so that it actually adhered to the belt somehow, because you actually saw that in the movie. It was on his belt at one point. But, no big deal. Not complaining much, and likely it's just going to stand on the shelf like that, so you can have the key right out there, because I think it looks really good that way with the sword and the Havoc staff. He is ready for action, ready to, fight the Eternian Guard and all of that, and, lay waste to the kingdom and conquer Grayskull and all. So, pretty good start to the Masterverse. If they get other figures from the 87 and Masterverse wants to make them, I'm all in. I think you've got a pretty good fan base out there who will buy these figures and who will definitely take advantage of what you've created and what you're able to put out here. So I'd encourage Mattel to do that actually, and go ahead and make Blade, Sarad, all of them, Karg. Get us Attila and Man-at-Arms from that likeliness. The Sorceress, even give us Lubick, get him into the action here too. Love to see that actually. All those figures. Get us Courtney Cox and young Tom Paris from Voyager. Get all of those, even the human characters in there. And Beast Man was a really cool look to him as well. We gotta get, Pig Boy. He was in the movie too. Brief second, but he's in there. And get some figures out, because I think, again, that they would sell from adult collectors and young collectors, new fans of the movies, to us old folks that are fans of the movies too. So I think you're doing well with this Masterverse. Little quality control issues. Very few complaints, but it is what it is. It is the retail kind of versions of these. We're not talking Super 7 Matty Collector, we're not talking Mondo and all of that, but they create great stuff too, and the retail. So I'd say if you can get out to Target, these are definitely worth your time and worth a pickup. So that's all we have for this episode. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter, and see all we have going forward on the Monster Report as the office starts to take shape. And shoot your questions our way. Eventually we'll be having memberships and all kinds of cool stuff. We do have merch that's available. Check the link in the description. And we will catch you on another episode of Box Day here on the Monster Report. We will catch you next time, and of course, as we always say on He-Man episodes, until next time.